All right, we're back another Saturday on our Black Media Network with the Watchdogs. And Carlton, how are you today?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Watchstar. So we have a lovely gentleman on today by the name of Chris Middleton. I had the privilege of meeting him a couple of years ago at a deep meeting, and he thoroughly impressed me then. So I know he'll thoroughly impress you all today.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's hop right into it. So, Mr. Middleton, tell us about yourself and why you decided to jump into a campaign this year.
I thank you for the opportunity. I think I'm having some issues with a microphone on my end. Can y'all hear me?
Oh, we hear you good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, Chris Middleton. I am. I'm actually from Charleston, South Carolina, born in Charleston, and born to a single parent household. Mom worked 3 jobs to make the ends meet. I was the oldest of three. Times were challenging.
Mhm.
Got into a lot of trouble because my younger brother has mental health challenges and uh, was getting bullied, and I just did what big brothers do. Um, and that went on. That was a trend for a while. Um, got into a lot of issues. Got into a lot of fights because of that. And then I moved to Moncks Corner, South Carolina, with my grandmother, who was born in 1908. So you know what type of education I got at that point in time. She taught me about history. She taught me about the community. Taught me about culture. Taught me about religion. And then slowly started to see my life transition and change. And um, once again, the issues with my brother continued, and I found myself defending him again in the 10th grade. But this time, I didn't end up I didn't end up in the principal's office. I ended up in front of a judge.
Mhm.
So it's a different game at this point. Um, Inside of a principal's office, I knew very well. Inside of a courtroom was something that was completely foreign to me, completely new. The judge asked me, "What do I want to, what happened?" And I told him exactly what happened, and I was prepared for the judge to rule against me. This was a perfect stranger, nobody that didn't know me. I didn't know him. He leaned over and says, "Well, I'm the oldest of five. I understand."
Mhm.
Dismissed my case, and when he dismissed my case, what happened is it allowed me an opportunity to then go to college. I got a
Mhm.
scholarship to Savannah State University. Was able to play football for the Tigers. Tryouts with the Dallas Cowboys and Minnesota Vikings. Didn't get drafted. But what's for you is for you. I didn't know that at the time. My steps were already ordered. I got offered a job with Mayor Floyd Adams, the
Mm.
first African American mayor of Savannah. Never in my wildest dreams I thought that this would actually happen, and I would have that opportunity. He forced me to actually go and pursue the law, um, and I went to law school in Vermont and came all the way back. So that one judge's decision of saying, I understand, I dismiss this case, allowed me to go forward with a series of events that ultimately is putting me in front of you all today. Um, I didn't know that as a kid. I didn't know that this was going to be the journey and the career path that I took, but God knew. And every day and every opportunity was a step in that direction. And here I am.
Amazing, amazing. Carlton?
Well, of course, my first question would always be, why, what, you know, let me gather my thoughts together so I phrase this
So like
question
one of the tough ones right here.
so I phrase this question correctly. So we know you seek a superior court judge, and we know the vast majority of the type that of our people that come through there. So when it comes to that, as a judge and to across the board fairness, how do you plan to deal with the issue of just basically the same situation of, like, if somebody comes before you, but let's say this is not their first time, maybe this is like their second or third time that's coming before
In those situations, you got to evaluate the facts. You got to look at the facts, listen to the arguments that the attorneys are presenting, and then make a decision at that point. You can never prejudge a situation based on what you perceive a person's situation to be. But now, this is what I would say. With that being considered, you temper justice with mercy. Right? This is what you do. You're humble in these situations, and you listen. You actively listen to the facts, and then you empathize and you sympathize. Right? So I've been in situations where I was raised and grew up on a very far end of the socioeconomic spectrum. And so therefore, I have a certain level of understanding when someone comes into a courtroom, and they are burdened with the challenges of, I can't I can't afford to pay the rent. Right? I can't afford to feed my family. Like I said, I grew up in a single parent household. I was the oldest of three, so I know what those days felt like, and I know what the electricity being cut off felt like, and I know what those situations and the type of emotional energy required to actually manage those situations. And so I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that. I think as a judge, you have to be wise and execute wisdom in that fashion. And that's an important thing. When you think of a judge, you think of a person that's well-rounded, a person that can speak from multiple different perspectives. And because of my life experiences being what they are, I think I am uniquely situated to do that.
So you talked a little bit about your journey at Savannah State University, and then you went on to Vermont. Walk us through that path of, what did you major in at Savannah State, and what kind of took you to Vermont for law school?
And once again, you never know what direction you're going to go in life. So when I got to Savannah State, I wanted to be a physical therapist. Savannah State didn't have that that particular program degree. And so I would have to go through the biology program. And then math, and it was physics that actually did it for me.
I get it.
When I took physics, I said, no, this is not for me. I'm not cut out for this. And I switched my major to mass communications. I had an amazing mentor at the time, and Dr. Charles J. Elmore, very, very direct professor, very direct mentor. Dr. Elmore and Mayor Floyd Adams were similar in that regard. He sat down, looked at my casework, and said, well, you are a very strong writer. I think you need to major in English literature and language. He also said, you know what? If you take a couple more classes, you could also get a mass communications degree. I said, well, why would I do that? He says, well, the school is paying for it. You're on scholarship. You might as well take advantage of this opportunity. And so I started to overload my classes and was able to graduate with 2 degrees, one in English literature and language and the other in mass communications. Like I said, my pursuits were to actually go to the NFL. That was it. That's what I focused on. I didn't see anything else past graduation except that, until I linked up with Mayor Floyd Adams, and he became my mentor. And he said, hey, look, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do? And then he directed me towards law school. And my next question was, well, Mayor, what law school do I go to? He says, well, you already did the HBCU experience. Now you need to diversify your experience and see how PWIs communicate, interact, and teach. And so I found Vermont Law School. I said, well, I can't get any more on the other end of the spectrum than this.
Yeah.
What I found out is that Savannah State University prepares you truly for everything. You can really get anywhere from there. And as a student in a classroom, in law school classroom, surrounded by Ivy League students from Harvard, Yale, Brown, Columbia, Savannah State stood its test of time, and we represented well. I graduated with honors from Vermont Law School with the Alumni Contribution Award for my contributions to the law school and the community. It was the almost a similar award I received from Savannah State University, the President's Second Mile Award. And that just spoke testaments to what Savannah State, the production of a Savannah State graduate in higher education. Doesn't matter if it's law school, doesn't matter if it's, doctoral programs or master programs. Savannah State prepares you to rise to the challenge, and that's what I did.
Well, I want to say one aspect that people might not know. Like I said earlier, I met you at the a deep meeting where you came. And I can't remember now whether you're the founder or whether you're the chairperson, but I see that your community outreach is there because you just stated it there, and it's been there for a long time. So can you explain to the people a little bit about that?
I believe in servant leadership. I believe in that. I grew up, like I said, my grandmother was born in 1908.
Mhm.
very rural Gullah community, amongst Northern South Carolina, this little town called Oakley. And everyone helped each other. Uh, what you didn't have, someone else had, and we shared, we uplifted and assisted. And so that spirit never left me. So when I got to Savannah State University, I started doing it in other ways. Big brother, big sister, Habitat for Humanity. It was natural. And you see some of the organizations, the Greek-lettered organizations, actually personify this in their mission and their visions and their principles. That's one of the things I picked up on with Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, which I'm a member. We believe in servant leadership. We believe in our duties and obligations to the community. And I was able to go ahead and continue that. And you do it in many different ways. So Deep Center, I'm the board chair of Deep Center. I gravitated towards Deep Center because I was one of these young kids that dealt with a lot of anger issues. Dad didn't grow up in the household. I wondered why my Christmas didn't look like my classmates' Christmas, right? When they got new bicycles and tennis shoes and everything. Well, my mom was a single parent. She couldn't afford it, but they came from 2-parent households. And
Mhm.
so the dynamic was a little different. And I had no outlet to really express my frustrations other than, getting into fights until I discovered poetry. When I
Mhm.
started writing poetry and was able to go ahead and express those frustrations and put it down on paper instead of just acting out um, my frustrations, my life started to change. And when I was associated with Deep Center, or introduced to Deep Center, I saw that that's exactly the thing that saved me. And how can I not gravitate towards that? I see someone else, another Chris Middleton, that is going through a similar challenge, and the way that I can help them with that is say, put it down to paper, get creative about it, write your frustrations down, use your words to express how you feel internally. Don't keep it bottled inside, because the moment you do that, everything rises to the top, right? There's going to be a critical point, an explosion when you keep stuff bottled inside. So release it, write it down. I love working with Habitat for Humanity. I love working with my hands and helping build someone else's dreams. I think there's no greater thing that you can do for society, for your fellow citizen, than to lend a helping hand. The same thing with citizens advocacy. And dealing with populations that are invisible. A lot of times we focus on race relations and gender relations, but we forget about individuals with challenges with mental and physical disabilities.
Mhm.
And when I saw how that population was being treated, I mean, it resonated with me because I said it earlier, my brother has mental health challenges. And so, I mean, that was a no brainer. I'm moving in that direction and I'm trying to do my part to uplift that community as well. And you're going to see situation after situation after situation like that. And where, I just came in and joined organizations that were doing good things for the community.
Sounds good. Sounds good. As you were talking about that, it prompted a thought in my head. Do you believe judges should have a level of compassion, or should they, in Georgia, for example, you have very strict guidelines. What are your thoughts around being a human, down to earth person, but also making sure that you're supporting the laws that's written?
That's a good question, and it's a fine line that you have to tightrope. Right? The law is the law.
Hmm.
It's black and white. But the thing that people don't talk about often is there's something called judicial discretion. And when you have that discretion, what dictates that discretion or what governs that discretion is going to be your life experiences as a person. And now you're looking at it through that particular lens and taking into consideration everything else that you've heard in regards to the case. Um, that is the time in where you could see certain levels or certain examples of compassion shine through is only in instances where there is judicial discretion that needs to be applied. Um, and a person wants to know what type of judge that I will be. The type of judge that I will be is you look at the organizations that I'm a part of. You look at those organizations. Judge Bass said, if you show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Mm.
Right. If you show you the people that you're around, you'll see exactly where your future is the direction your future is going to head into. If you look at the organizations that I'm a part of, Habitat for Humanity, Citizens Advocacy, the Savannah Chatham Homeless Authority. If you look at all these different nonprofit entities and organizations, Deep Center, Hodge Memorial Daycare, the Savannah Safety Valve Project, Georgia Appleseed, that is the ethos. That is me. That is the type of lens and empathy that I'm going to evaluate matters through when and only when I have the discretion to do so.
All right, Carlton, we'll turn it to you, and then we'll do a commercial break.
Well, this is my next question for you. You know, every lawyer usually when they go to law school, they have that path that they want to go to. My question is, was criminal law that path that you want to go on? And what was that deciding factor that say the deciding case or decision that said, oh, this is where I need to be, this is where I didn't want to go?
And you guys are y'all getting down to it, man. Yeah, real questions. I mean, and that's what the people want to know.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that. For me, it was environment. So I came to Vermont Law School for environmental law. I noticed that there wasn't a lot of minorities in environmental law. I was intrigued because I saw what was going on in Alabama with Cancer Alley and a lot of pollutants being pumped into minority neighborhoods. And so I said, well, I wanted to be one of those lawyers that addressed that issue. And then I struggled a little bit because even though I wasn't able to play professional football, I always thought that maybe I could still be close to the game as an entertainment lawyer, an agent. And so I was running those two paths. And then I did an internship in Berkeley County with the public defender's office there. And that is what changed my legal trajectory. I saw how the system was working. I saw how these individuals were being treated, and it broke me down. It really, when I went home, I really prayed about it, asked God for some direction, because something that bothers you that much, I mean, God is trying to tell you something. It's just not a passing feeling, and I couldn't shake it. And so at that point, I made the decision to move forward as a public defender. I said, you could be part of the problem or you could be part of the solution. And I chose to be part of the solution. I believe that every client that you have, doesn't matter if they can't afford an attorney. If they get one that's appointed to them, then that attorney that's appointed to you should work as hard, if not harder, as if they were being paid. And so that's the direction I took. And I said, God, you help me pass this bar exam. Please let me pass this bar exam. I am going to represent the people. And that's what I did. When I got files weren't case number SPCR 2323. Files were, this is James Smith. This is Rhonda Williams. This is an actual person who has a family, who has hopes, dreams, aspirations. And so I got to know my clients on that level. Because, I mean, how are you going to represent someone and defend their constitutional rights if you don't establish an attorney-client relationship based on trust, based on having the information about who they are? I mean, that's how you fight hard for people. You learn who they are. And once you learn who they are, that motivates you to actually go above and beyond, because you're representing something more than just numbers. You're representing a person, a living, breathing person. And, you know, to me, that's the greatest honor. And I kept my promise to God. He kept his promise to me. And so here we are.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, gentlemen, we'll go to a commercial and we'll be right back.
Have you ever experienced a Juneteenth event? Come out to Port Wentworth and celebrate our second annual Juneteenth Festival. Friday, June 21st from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. Come enjoy our music, our food, our heritage, our culture, and our history. It will be plenty of fun for everyone. Juneteenth is American history. It's a day that we celebrate and remember. It's a day that we look back, but more importantly, a day that we look forward. Join us this June.
Hello, I'm Richard Coleman, and I'm running for the office of Sheriff of Chatham County. And when I'm elected, I promise to inspect what I expect. Chatham County, it's time for a change, and that change is me, Richard Coleman.
All right, we're back. So, Mr. Middleton or Chris, do you ever have aspirations of maybe being on the Supreme Court of the state or maybe the U.S. Supreme Court? What are your thoughts on that?
I've been asked that question multiple times throughout this journey, and before that it was district attorney, and before that it was mayor. I got even lieutenant governor.
Okay.
My response to that is that you face the challenge that's in front of you, and so my focus is the Superior Court of Chatham County. I made a promise to my constituents that this is the position that I want to hold. And whatever God has for me in the future, then I'm gonna do it just like I've been doing. Just do the right thing and allowing Him to lead me in that direction. But if I am called to move in that direction, then trust and believe that I'm going to be fully prepared to do just that. But right now, in this moment, my goal, my objective is to become the newest member of the Chatham County Superior Court bench.
Sounds good.
I have the firm belief that everybody cannot be saved and that everybody does not deserve a second chance, because I watch people who have been given chance after chance after chance and they blow it until they get to that point where they sitting there crying like, Judge, why you won't give me a second chance? So I know it's a question, I know, but do you feel like, I'm not gonna say do you share my belief, but what is your take on the statement that everybody cannot be saved?
I think that's a tough one. You guys, man. You guys questions, man. I think that's true to some degree. Some people just will not self-correct, become aligned, and move in the right direction. They've made a conscious decision not to do that. But there's also people who sometimes got to go through trials and tribulations and reach what they say the proverbial rock bottom before they actually start to climb up out of that. And we see it a lot with clients in drug court or dealing with some type of drug addiction. So what happens in that instance, people relapse. And you got to have a certain level of understanding and compassion just to know that that's going to happen. That is a realistic possibility. And you just give them the resources and the encouragement and the motivation to keep getting back up, even though they're falling down. So I think you see it on both sides. Sometimes some people won't get it right, and some people got to go through some more tests before they finally reach that epiphany and say, okay, now it's time for me to start marching forward. I've seen it both ways. Working in the public defender's office, having clients work with the drug court. I've seen it in my capacity as a pro tem judge in juvenile court and recorder's court. It's a real thing. And that's the challenge, being able to code switch in your head between defense attorney, legal scholar, and judicial representative. That's like switching the dials on the radio. And you got to know when to do it, how to do it, and how often to do it. And in those instances, when you see people who can't get it right, well, you do the best you can. You do the best you can in regards to your position, and then move forward. For the people that need a little more encouragement, they need a leader, a shoulder to lean on. You give them that. You give them the resources that they need. And once you give people the resources that they need, the ones that want to change and want to make a difference and may have experienced challenges in the beginning part of it, they will surprise you towards the end. I mean, we know stories of people who, what's the phrase, can't get right. We know people can't get right. And then one day, by the grace of God, because they got loving people and a strong support system around them, then they get it, right? They get it. I went to college with a lot of people who came in with challenges, and You know, folks are saying they can't get it. They won't. Now they got their doctorate degree, and they're inspiring whole communities by being positive mentors and role models in communities. I mean, so it can happen. I think it's just both sides of the spectrum, and you just got to evaluate it evenly.
You know, one of the things I was, thinking about, in our community, unfortunately, we see violent crime on a daily basis. With that said, are we focusing, our resources on the right areas, or do we need to reevaluate and maybe prioritize how we approach that issue? Because, when I grew up many years ago as a young child, it was very similar. Somebody was getting killed or shot every day. So, what are your thoughts about that? Are we in the right direction when it comes to dealing with violent crime in this area?
I think we got the pieces. We're building the foundation. Slowly but surely, we're gaining the resources and the support. You see it with different organizations like the 100 Black Men of Savannah and their mentorship. And I'm focusing only on mentorship in the beginning part of this question because, I mean, you got to touch these youth when they're young, right? You got to touch them when they're young, because if not, by the time we get to 14, 15, 16, man, there's a certain level of indoctrination that have taken place that's going to require a lot of deprogramming or reprogramming to get a lot of our young leaders back into alignment. So you got youth councils, you got different fraternity Greek-lettered organizations that are mandated to be mentors in our community. I think in doing that, our crime issue will be addressed. Then you got organizations and initiatives like Stop Gun Violence or End Gun Violence Initiative. I think we have no shortages of programs. Dr. Priscilla Thomas with her Summer Bonanza program. Older person Carol Brown with her Summer 500. I mean, we have the resources. We just need to keep turning in that direction. And I think if we keep moving in that direction and everybody buys in, everybody's able to be a part of that shared vision, I think at the end of the day, we're going to see great change. But what they always say, it gets worse before it gets better. And so we're in this process where we're moving forward, we're progressing, and it may not seem like we're making a dent in the issue, but we definitely are. I believe we're trending in the right direction. I heard our DA speak not too long ago, and she was saying that the percentage for violent crimes down. Small and minor crimes are the majority of the offenses that happen in Chatham County, and I won't say that's good to hear that, but I'm glad that violent crime is actually on a decrease.
Right.
And that's because, we got citizens like you, citizens like me, everybody that's saying, you know what, we're in the fight together. I'm just not going to rely on government. I'm just not going to rely on this organization to do it. I'm going to play my part. I'm going to do my part. If we continue to do that, we're going to be all right.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
My next question. He'd be like, it's so funny that you say that. But the one thing that I want people to realize about when you ask these candidates these questions up front, it gives you a whole generalized idea of who they are and what they stand for. Because I outright said, I actually support Chris Middleton. When I found out he was running for Superior Court judge, I was excited. Because I said I made him outside of outside of the judicial system and seeing what he was doing in the community to know that he would be a correct candidate for us in Chatham County. But we ran by the question because we know what the Superior Court judge, but the thing that people need to know, what are the key points of what the Superior Court judge does?
Good one. Good question.
That man, you guys, man, I'm telling you, this is probably one of the most informative and intense interviews I've had on this campaign trail. The questions are definitely on point.
Right. We probably could throw out 5 bullets before we ask that one.
So the Superior Court is it's an interesting court, right? So the Superior Court handles felony offenses. They handle low-level felony offenses, major crimes, anything felonious is going to be handled under the jurisdiction of the Superior Court. Superior Court also handles land challenges. That's handled in Superior Court as well. Domestic cases, divorces, custody issues, that's handled in Superior Court as well. Also, civil matters that's above $15,000 is also handled in Superior Court. Now, state court has what they call dual jurisdiction over that particular matter, because if you got a matter that's $15,000 or higher, you could bring that in state court as well. I mean, you see a lot of the civil attorneys actually bring civil litigation in state court versus Superior Court, because state court also has that jurisdiction. But those are the four major issues or areas that Superior Court handles. And then there's some other collateral things that Superior Court is connected with. That's the accountability courts. That is the juvenile courts of Chatham County. I mean, so they got they're connected in many different courts throughout Chatham County. Even if you have a magistrate court matter and you want to get it appealed, I mean, there's the whole appeals process as well. And then beyond the Superior Court, and you start talking about the federal courts. We got the federal courts, we got the appeals courts, and then we got the Supreme Court of Georgia. And I think some of you may have already seen some. They're having contested races as well, so you probably have seen some advertisements for some of the Supreme Court judges come across either your emails or your mailboxes. But as far as the Superior Court, those are the four major areas.
Okay. Let me ask you, Chris, do you think we have a singular judicial system, or do we have two separate judicial systems based on race and class?
I think
Carlton told me the accent.
So our system ideally is set up to address the issues in the Constitution, to advance fundamental fairness. Doesn't matter race, religion, or creed. But what we have seen throughout history is that sometimes that justice isn't applied fairly. I mean, these aren't my words. History has shown us that from time and time again. And that's why it's important to make sure that certain people are elected. I mean, the system is the system. It's the people in the system that determines if we're going to go right, if we're going to go left, or we're going to go straight ahead. And so we got to make sure we vet our candidates for these positions fairly, thoroughly, just like you all are doing today. Because once they put into that system, now there's an expectation that they're going to operate from a place of fairness. It doesn't matter who comes before the court. And that is me, right? That is the type of person that I am. So I can't speak to anyone else. I can only speak to my actions and my expectations. And most importantly, the people that vote for me, I want you to hold me accountable. Right? You get me in this position. I want you to say, hold on, Chris, you said this. You said that. You promised that you were going to act in accordance with this, and your actions or your rulings are not reflective of that. Hold me accountable. One thing that my grandmother, who was born in 1908, taught me is that be humble. Be humble. Right? And so I am humble. I'm humble enough for you to have these conversations with me, to hold me accountable. I'm humble enough to listen, but I'm also zealous enough to tell you that, yes, historically, there's been challenges in regards to the administration of justice. But the way we handle that and the way we correct that is to make sure that we elect people that are going to operate from a place of fundamental fairness. And like I said, that's me.
Sounds good.
That sounds good. You know, I heard a statement that say the judges are reluctant to run against attorneys are reluctant to run against other judges. I see you have no reluctancy because we know you feel what's right is what's right, what's wrong is what's wrong. I ain't gonna say nobody did nothing wrong. I ain't gonna say nobody did. They aren't say they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. But do you feel like there's a reluctancy amongst attorneys who run against judges?
I do. I do see that. Fortunately, in my position, Judge Friesman is retiring, and it's an open seat. I have opposition, but it's an open seat. Um, I don't think that I would have ran against Judge Friesman in a different scenario, only because I'm looking at a situation now where I'm a pro tem judge in juvenile court, in recorder's court, and also I'm a managing partner of my law firm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was offered or put in positions where I could have taken a judicial position years ago, but the time wasn't right. Right, the time just wasn't right. We were dealing with COVID. I'm part of a law firm family, and for me to leave at that point in time, when we were dealing with that level of financial uncertainty, leave my team stranded, I just wasn't. I'm not built like that. Right? I'm not built like that. I am a team player. So when the opportunity presented itself to actually run for a Superior Court position due to this pending vacancy by Judge Friesman, I moved in that direction, and it felt right. It felt right. I prayed about it. I talked to my spiritual advisors, and I moved in that direction. But typically, lawyers do not challenge judges. If you look in the history of, matter of fact, you just look at the last 15 years here in Chatham County, how many times has that happened? It rarely happens. I think the last race that we had that was contested on the Superior Court level where it got contentious was going to be Judge Morse when he was defending his seat against Peter Mueller. Right, that was a very heated, very contested judicial race. And Peter Mueller was a civil attorney, and Judge Morse was a sitting Superior Court judge. So it definitely happens. I believe Judge Friesman was contested for her seat by Attorney Hilliard many years ago. It happens, but it doesn't happen frequently. I think as a judge, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you're not operating within the rules of the Judicial Qualifying Commission or the canons, and you're not operating as a fair and impartial member of the legal community, then I think you should be challenged. I think you should be challenged because at that point you have not you have violated the public trust. People elected you to operate in a certain way, to make fair and impartial decisions on cases. And if you're not doing that, then you should be challenged. There should be defense attorneys and civil attorneys that are courageous enough to stand up and say, okay, well, I'm here to advance the rule of law. I'm here to be fair and impartial. I'm here to make sure that everyone has access to the courts. That is my job. That is what I'm going to do. That's what the people elected me to do. Anything less than that, then you should get challenged.
Go ahead, Carlton. Our CEO's cousin texted me and was like, "Where are you?" I was like, "You know where I am every Saturday at noon." So, like, come on now.
But I guess I'll initiate this next question. Since he said he getting to interview his campaign, so we might as well continue on a little bit. We always go in this day and age. We've come up with more social media and more where stuff has become more broadcast, and we realize that certain things are going to be out of our control. But it's coming to the point where a lot of sensitive topics are coming up. So how do you plan to how will you deal with, or how do you plan to deal with those sensitive topics when they come into the court?
Carlton, I think something happened with the audio. I can't hear you now.
Do you hear me now?
You might have to go out and come back in.
RG, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't hear us. Yeah. We hear you. You probably don't hear us. Oh, let me send a message. Yeah.
Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm. I can hear you. But what he asked was, how do you plan to deal with those sensitive topics that may come before you, given social media now has become so much like the news, all the news. So how do you juggle it? How do you navigate that space? Oh, not my bad. I didn't mean for him to go out and come back in, but it might have been. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Why we sound like Medea? You see me?
But like I tell everybody while we're waiting, I thoroughly support Chris Middleton. Like I say, he's an all around great gentleman, and I feel like he'll do great things for the county of Chapel. So,
Chris, can you hear us now? Or
I can hear you now.
oh, perfect. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. Go ahead, Carlton.
oh, I was saying, social media has created so many issues. Well, I'm gonna say it created issues, but it just creates a lot of awareness of what's going on. So when it comes to like sensitive subjects that are coming to the courtrooms, like race or gender or orientation, how do you plan to address those situations? Or how you plan to deal with and making sure that each side is just not bombarding each other to make one seem worse than the other?
I think as a judge, you have, it's oversimplification of it, but you're a referee. You got to make sure that one, the parties stick within the bounds and the realms of the law. Number two, which is a challenge at times, is making sure that individuals remain professional at all times. That means that we're not injecting anything that is not part of the case, not part of facts into the equation. We're not name calling. We're not acting unprofessionally, and that goes for the lawyers as well. Sometimes, if you want to cool the temperature out of the courtroom, one of the things you have to do is just manage the energy level of the legal parties, because sometimes the legal parties, because it's an adversarial process, sometimes it gets heated, sometimes things escalate. But as a judge, a good judge, you're able to maintain that and manage that and make sure that there aren't any outside influences that come in and distract people from what we're really here to do, which is to solve problems, which is to reach a resolution on a particular matter or particular issue. And so that is, as a public defender, is one of the things that I try to follow very closely and make sure that I didn't escalate matters in court, but still was able to zealously advocate for my clients. If opposing counsel decided to elevate things, then my goal and my objective at that point was to bring it to the judge's attention and get things back on track. But it's tough. Sometimes, tempers fly, people get heated, but the judges needed to go in and make sure that courtroom stays balanced, because if we allow issues that aren't part of the case to actually become part of the case, and you get into a position where you're name calling and acting in an unprofessional manner, then nothing's going to happen. Now, when you get in situations, now the flip side of that is, what if it's a case, or what if it's a matter that involves race, right? Like say racial profiling or something along those lines of that nature. Then you got to evaluate the facts. You got to listen to the testimony, listen to the evidence, see if that's exactly what's going on, and that's what it is. And if it is that, then we got to act and govern ourselves accordingly. The law speaks very directly on that, those types of attacks, those types of issues. And as a judge, I'm going to follow the rule of law, especially when it comes to matters like that.
Okay, RG.
Oh, go for it. You had another one. He just sent me one. I was like, go for it.
Jennifer Lewis, I was watching a TikTok one day, and Jennifer Lewis said this statement. She said the reason what made her so great was that she surrounded herself with generals to help her and make decisions. So do you have counselor people that you can look upon when you feel like you need to? You might have the idea, but you want to make sure that you have a guided path. I feel like maybe you want to make sure that you're within the bounds or what you're supposed to be doing. Or I can think I'm getting what I'm saying. Get what I'm saying.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You got to have mentors in that situation. And the Superior Court is that, right? You got Judge Colbert, Judge Stokes, Judge Morse, Judge Walmsley, Judge Karp. And they got their experiences. which is invaluable because they've been doing it longer than they've been a judge longer than I have. And so that's going to be my first go-to in those situations. I have judicial mentors in Atlanta. I had them in Brunswick and in Macon. So I reach out to that network, and you're absolutely right. You got to have these people that you lean on to, and even in regular everyday life, you got to have people that you go to whenever you're faced with a challenge, and say, "Hey, look, man, what do you think about this?" Now, on the community side, man, we are fortunate to have a lot of generals, right? We got Brother Julius Hall. I mean, he's a general. What's bringing this type of platform to the people? You all are generals, right? I mean, and you got the pulse on the community. You know exactly what's going on. If I'm just in the courtroom and on a bench, hearing cases that come before me and not engage in the community, and don't have any idea what's going on in the community, then I'm one-sided. And so when it comes to community issues, man, I'm like, hey, Carlton, man, what do you think about this? So you saw this ruling in the court. You saw what's going on in the Supreme Court and the decisions that they've made as it relates to constitutional rights and civil liberties. What do you think about that? Dr. Robert, I come to you and say, man, boots on the ground in the community. I mean, have you seen an increase in violent crimes? And what do you think is the cause of that? And better yet, what do you think are the solutions, and how can we move forward with that? So I make sure I surround myself with some strong generals constantly, every day. Mayor Floyd Adams taught me that when I worked for him. He had his counsel. Everyone has to have a counsel because this world is 360 degrees, right? 360 degrees, and you got to be protected 360 degrees. The best way to make sure that happens is to make sure you got some strong soldiers around you. That's going to operate in your best interest, give you the information that you need, and most importantly, hold you accountable. There's always checks and balances, and you got to have people that's going to be courageous enough to say, look, you tripping, man. All right. Or, man, you got it right on that one. Let's see what you do with the next one. So that's always important.
Well, Chris, we don't want to run out of time and not give you an opportunity to tell people where they can find you online. If you have a website, how can they donate, and talk a little bit about your platform as well.
Okay. Matter of fact, I think I could. You can find me at electchrismiddletonforjudge.com. My platform is on restorative justice. My platform is on servant leadership. And just to explain that a little bit, I believe I said earlier that if you give people the resources that they need, they will surprise you. So we got, if you're dealing with a drug addiction, there's drug court, there's the resources that we can build in to make sure that you get the counseling that you need, housing that you need. And that's important. That's even with mental health court. That's with all the different accountability courts that we have here in Chatham County. And also outside of that, when you start talking about a sentence plan for a person, what's in that sentence plan, right? Are we talking about a condition or a component that says GED requirements, or workforce development requirements, or what are the conditions that are built in that's going to help a person elevate to the next level? Or are we going to put conditions and sentences that continue to anchor people down to the bottom of the ocean, right? And I think that's really important, because what we see in today's society is that workforce development is a real thing. I mean, people they want jobs, they want workers, but then when they do the background check, they see a felony conviction, you get eliminated from consideration, and that's a problem. I am a strong proponent of first offender. I'm a strong proponent of conditional discharge and pretrial diversion. Anything that's going to keep that felony conviction off of your record for low-level felony offenses. Now, when we start talking about major crimes, that's a different story. But if you got a simple marijuana possession, that's on your record, and that's prohibiting you from getting a job or enrolling into a university and getting a scholarship to get a better education. Now, I got a problem with that. I got a serious problem with that. The other platform I'm running on is servant leadership. As a legal advocate, man, you're a leader in the courtroom. I mean, that's a given. That's what you're supposed to do. But lawyers are also supposed to be leaders in the community. You're supposed to work in the community. You're supposed to associate with nonprofit organizations and uplift your community in any way that you can. I mean, that's the principles and the tenets of being a legal advocate. And so I believe in servant leadership. I believe in restorative justice. I believe in fundamental fairness. And this is what I look to bring to the Superior Court of Chatham County.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Carlton, any final questions you have? I think you did a good job on this one.
I mean, I think I done got him enough this episode.
Great job, man. Definitely great job.
Good conversation. I mean, I look forward to seeing you, win this election. I think you have a really well prepared thought process to enter that space. So,
it's my one thing.
I appreciate it.
I'm so the one thing I used to tell RG when he was running for city council is that we always have the positive mindset that when I'm sitting on there, I will be your next. So I always remember that. Because like I told him, y'all better be on the lookout for Christmas and be our next Superior Court judge. If you ain't know, now you know.
Thank you.
Hey, good job, man. We appreciate you being on. The only thing I will share is, I think sometimes the black and gold might be a little different thing, but I respect my purple and gold people. We love y'all too.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And so I'm assuming Mr. J. Jones as well.
Yes.
So, well, good stuff. Carlton, any final thoughts, or Chris, any final thoughts?
I mean, what challenges or what issues do have you identified or that you've seen in regards to the Superior Court of Chatham County, or just judicial positions, period?
Well, I'll share this. I asked a question earlier because, in my humble opinion, I think the legal system focuses way too much on control and not enough on dealing with violent crime. Senator Warnock talks about this. We incarcerate way too many people in America. As you said, like for marijuana. Marijuana is a plant, for God's sakes. And, everybody has their own perception of it. But when you understand the history of it, right, and you understand how mental health leads people to things, like you said, you get a whole different perspective. But now you have all of these folks that are housed and on the taxpayer's back, when there could have been rehabilitation and not a capitalistic approach to things. So, I will hope that we one day turn the corner and say, you know what, we're doing things a little bit archaic, and how can we address that to fit today's society?
I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, and putting on my defense attorney hat, what I can say is that when it comes down to these controlled substances, and specifically marijuana, I've represented more military veterans that I can count, because they need it. When you deal with issues of PTSD, no one really, a lot of people really don't really know the depths of how that impacts people. And so what happens is, man, you end up taking other prescribed medication that alters the way you think, the way you feel. My past clients have said, man, I felt sluggish. I felt like I was in a cloud, and I don't understand why I'm being prescribed something that is negatively impacting me. When there's this other option, there's this alternative option that other states have decided to legalize for specific purposes. And I mean, now I got to fight for those. I got to fight for those individuals tooth and nail, right? I got to fight for them because a lot of stuff is really dependent on it. They can't have a felony conviction; they'll lose their benefits.
Wow.
And so, man, I agree. I mean, the resources expended to address, that particular low-level felony offense, man, is just, those resources are better spent, addressing areas and issues of mental health, the actual issues that are on the incline. We see suicide deaths and attempts amongst the teenage population on the increase. But, we really don't highlight that and talk about that because we're worried about these other things that we really shouldn't be worrying about to the degree that we're worrying about it. So I would love to see more of a focus point on mental health. being courageous enough to have those types of conversations in schools, in courtrooms, more resources pumped in that direction. Because if not, what we're going to continue to see is we're going to continue to see these news articles dealing with teenage suicide attempts on the increase. We're going to see, and everything's connected. We start seeing the gun violence and people who are stopped and arrested and charged and convicted with gun violence and gun crimes. And it's this mental health component attached to that. We got to start putting resources in places that need it, right? And not continue to chase this thing. We all remember what the war on drugs, y'all.
The war on black folk.
And here we are, right? This is 2024. So, and the only way we're going to be able to move that needle forward is with, generals like yourself, keep pushing that needle forward, keep having the courageous conversations and bringing things to the forefront in the news. I mean, because this is real news. This is not fake news. What you are giving the people is real news. So keep bringing the real news to the people, keep them informed, and help them make the right decisions moving forward.
Talking your observation, or?
I mean, my only observation is the fact of the one thing that I think I would like to see is, we have the 100 black men in Savannah who they work with youth, but then we have this youth who get into trouble, and I don't really feel like, to my perception, that's just my perception, that they don't have somebody to come in and help them, advocate once they get there, to help advocate for them, and because, like we said, we grew up, we're in a fatherless generation, and I would like to see these organizations become more part of the system, more part of helping them get out of the system. We know they become a part of the system, but we want to see them once they come not to go back. That's just my basic observation.
You had an organization called a nonprofit organization called League of Brawn, and they're doing some great things. Because what happens is we got to make sure we touch all populations, and sometimes the populations that the 100 Black Men of Savannah can touch and reach is different from the population that the League of Brawn can reach. Sometimes, man, you gotta go into these communities, right? And and if you really want to be about mentorship, go to Lake Mare on Sunday evening on the basketball court, man. When you got the young gentlemen out there and they're playing basketball, right? And those are the ones that's not going to be involved in the 100 Black Men of Savannah. They don't believe in, I got to wear a shirt and tie. I'm out here in the community, and sometimes you got to meet people where they are. And so we can't be timid in meeting people where they are, because we got the Tyrones and the Khalifs, and they're looking for the Chris Middletons and the Carltons and the Roberts to come out there and be like, yo, young brother, I've been there before, right? I know what that looks like. I know what that challenge looks like. Let's talk about some ways to actually advance. And what do you want to do? How you want to do it? Let's help you get there. I'm not counting you out. I used to be there, right? I started this conversation off with saying that, I was in front of a judge, and now I'm running for judge, right? So now it's all possible. We can do it, but we got to be courageous enough to meet people where they are, man, and help them get to where they need to be.
That's it. And I'll close with this. I often tell people, we feel like we have a bad day or things didn't go well at work. And, oftentimes I used to work at Georgia State University, and right across the street was Woodruff Park. And when you see people, all they have is the buggy in front of them, the clothes on their back, and they're sleeping on the concrete. And we'll walk right by them and we will say, oh, well, they must have misspent their money and all that stuff. But it's the compassion that we've got to dial back into, because all of us are just one step away from being in that same situation, right? So I'm glad to hear you say, just reach out to folks, reach out to the young people, because far too often now we're seeing, kids under 25 involved in these violent crimes or robberies or whatever, and it's just sad.
And you just, matter of fact, I don't know how we looking on time, but you just jogged my memory on something. I created this program called I Wish I Knew. I wish I knew because I got tired of representing young people who said, man, I wish I would have known. If I'd have known that, I wouldn't have done this. I would have operated differently. And I saw it mostly happen with people charged with armed robbery. They charge a party to a crime. And that party to a crime statute is so large and encompasses so much. And a lot of people get caught up and not being charged with the actual offense, but being charged as a party to the crime. What I want to see done, and I think it's not done to the degree in which we need it to be done, and that is people actually explaining what these charges are. Somebody may say, man, I've been charged with burglary, but what are the elements of burglary? They don't know. They just know I've been charged with burglary. They don't know it's breaking and entering with the intent to commit a theft or a felony, right? So these are the certain elements that need to be met in order for you to be charged with that particular offense. Even with party to a crime, certain things need to be established in order for you to be charged with party to a crime. I think we got to start educating the communities about what these offenses are. And the first thing that we're going to say is, well, that's the lawyer's job to do it. Well, it's not being done to the degree in which it needs to be done. And I love going into these elementary schools, these middle schools, these high schools, colleges, summer camps, and talking about the collateral consequences of criminal conduct. I like talking about this is the law, this is the Constitution. I promise you, if you go to an 8th grade class and say, what is the most important Constitution amendment to you in your life? And a lot of people, they struggle with it because they don't know the constitutional amendments. But let me ask you, who's better, J. Cole or Drake? Oh man, okay.
You know that one, right?
we own it. I mean, is it Nicki Minaj or Megan Thee Stallion? We own it, right? But and my thing is, look, how can you expect to win at the game of life, if you don't know the rules of the game? And the rules of the game are those constitutional rights, right? We're talking about your First Amendment right, which is, it's important. I mean, that's how you're going to express yourself, your ideals, your individuality, right? And if you don't, I'm getting on my soapbox now. Let me stop. y'all got me amped up, right? Y'all got me energized. Y'all got me ready to go out here and start campaigning some more. But I just want to leave on that issue, man. I just think, lawyers and judges need to be more intentional about educating the community about the law and changes to the law.
I agree with you. Robert, I have to say one more thing because it reminded me of a conversation that we had earlier. Most people know I drive school bus, and during Black History Month, I had these two young African American males in my bus, and I was like, y'all, it's Black History Month. What do y'all want to be when y'all grow up? And they both of them looked at me and unanimously said nothing. And I was like, I said, we not gonna do that. That's not it. I say, you lawyer, doctor, something. You got to have some aspiration. I was like, I don't want you to be out here in the streets doing this, that, and the third. And I was like, that's sad that. Because I agree with you. We got to meet these people. We got to meet the youth where they are in order for them to understand that they are bigger and that they are greater and they can accomplish so much more than what they think they can. Don't be a product of your environment. That's what I tell them all the time.
Absolutely.
That's real.
Yep.
All right. Any final comments? It's open. The floor is open.
No, brothers, I think we said a lot, man. You guys, man, please invite me back.
Okay. Most definitely.
I love this dialogue. I love this exchange, man. I don't think it happens as often as it should, man, because we hold people accountable when we have these types of conversations, and we know what they're thinking and how they think. So please invite me back.
Most definitely. And to your point about the educational piece, I think Sonia Jackson is the best example of educating people about what her office does as tax commissioner.
Yes.
I totally agree with you. A lot of us know, don't get a speeding ticket, but outside of that, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of that from you and hopefully some others that are elected to the judgeships.
Definitely.
All right. Well, we'll be back next Saturday at noon. Same time, same place. So y'all have a great week now.
Thank you.
That's the wrong outro.
like this.